Swanzey Now. Right now, Swanzey. Swanzey Now.
Not then and now.
Not
just
then and now. Swanzey Now. So this program has been established so that we can learn a little bit more about Swanzey and the things that are happening and what are we supposed to do as a community? Like, I'm a resident of Swanzey. What do you expect from me?
Who are you, by the way?
Oh, who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I? Are you Michael Branley?
I am Michael Branley.
You're the administrator for the town of
Swanzey
Swanzey?
Town Administrator.
Awesome. I'm Jody Turner, and I am the host. That's all I am.
Good.
I'm just a person that lives in Swanzey that cares about what's going on. And, you know, I feel a little guilty that I haven't done more because I've lived in Swanzey for 10 years. I have to tell you, and many of you may know this, I lived in Keene all my life. And I loved living in Keene, but I really enjoy living in Swanzey. I feel so proud. And it happened when we first moved to Swanzey. I saw a viewing of Rural Character, cried. I was so proud to live in Swanzey because when I grew up, there was a rival between Swanzey and Keene.
I think there still is, by the way.
Is there? Yeah. But not like it used to be. I don't know.
Not.
But anyway, what I've learned, though, is that Swanzey has a lot of really great attributes. And we need to keep this going. And so we, as residents of Swanzey or the community, need to do things that are going to help us get to where we need to be in the future. So, Michael, we talked a little bit on another show about a new website.
Yep.
The new website came on in January 3rd
That's
of
right.
2020.
SwanzeyNH.gov. And yeah, new website, new look, hopefully some new features that folks find helpful, some email updates that they can sign up for at the bottom of the page. So we hope people check it out, let us know what they think, and sign up to get email newsletters. So you, like you say, you don't know what's going on if
Right.
you don't get the news, you don't know what's happening.
Exactly.
So we want to help get the word out there, and hopefully it's, like I said, more user friendly for folks to use. So
Yeah.
SwanzeyNH.gov.
And then you just mentioned also that there's going to be a quarterly newsletter that will help us to be reminded that there's
Right.
things coming up.
Right, so that's about to come out. And then, yeah, I think we're actually going twice a year in 2020, and we're going to
okay.
go back to mailing it out to folks. We found that was effective. We kind of went away from mailing for a few years, but so folks will be getting the new one that just came out online, and then in, I think, June or July, they'll get the semi-annual Swanzey Uncovered newsletter.
Excellent. And that will be available on the website at all
Yes.
times anyway.
Yep,
So
and
you'll
it's
be able to
something
get...
you can sign up for to get emailed to you as well.
That's great. That's great. Because, you know, we all get busy. And I get busy, you get busy, you know, you have a life. But you need to be reminded because these things are important. And I know a lot of people will probably say, oh, I meant to go to that. And then it just happened. So there's a couple of dates that we want to give you. I know that this will probably air back and forth throughout the year, but right now we're shooting this in January. And we have a budget hearing or budget, what do you call it?
Yeah, budget hearing.
Okay. Budget hearing coming up on January 15th. And then the deliberative session
And
will
that's
be...
at the budget
Monadnock.
hearing starts at 6 p.m. at the Monadnock Cafeteria Annex.
Okay.
And then, yeah, the deliberative session is February 4th, starts at 7 p.m. in the auditorium.
Okay. And then in March, there'll be the voting.
The town voting right
Right.
on March 10th at Christian Life Fellowship Church on Whitcomb Road.
Great. So one of the things that is going to be talked about at the budget hearing and the deliberation, I believe, is the fire station.
Yes,
Or
that's
where
correct.
we're at with fire stations, because we have 3 fire stations,
Yes.
correct,
Yep.
for the town of Swanzey. We have one in East Swanzey, which is number 1.
Right.
Number 2 is in Swansea Center, and number 3 is in West Swansea. And these buildings were built quite a while ago,
Yes.
especially the one in Swansea Center.
Right.
That
So
was-
that one has an interesting history. It's in the basement of Town Hall, and I think you have some
Photographs.
some photos here that
Yep.
we'll get to in a minute. But
Yep.
so that's in the basement of Town Hall.
Yeah.
Really, at least since the 1990s, the town has been working on finding a solution to get it out of the basement of Town Hall. The town actually bought the property for the Grange Hall, which I know you're involved with,
right.
Jody, and had an initial plan to level that building and put a fire station there. And some folks came out and didn't think that was such a good idea. So the Grange Hall is still there.
Yeah, it is history. But yes.
But that's just evidence that this is not a new issue. That was, like I
Right.
said, in the 1990s, which is almost 30 years ago. Hard to believe. So the town's been really working on that issue since then. I don't know if we want to get into some of the kind of more
Yeah.
recent history now on
Well,
some
let's
of the
let's
prior
show
efforts.
people
Or-
what
okay.
the town hall looks like.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
So it was built back in the early 1900s.
Yep.
This is what the building looked like originally. It had dirt all around it. You can see there's not a lot of trees in the back. You know, back then they cut down all the trees anyway for anything. Even if you looked at Mount Caesar, it had no trees.
Right.
So the next photograph is from the 200th anniversary for Swanzey. You can see that there's a fire station or a fire garage on that little building on the side. And then the next slide shows another building, again on the side of the town hall. Those were used for fire trucks, but the fire trucks were much smaller then. They didn't have to deal with a lot of the smoke and junk that's in houses now, and they didn't need trucks that were quite so tall. So let's go to the next slide, and that shows the town hall today. If you look at it, and we'll show you more slides. If you look at it on the left-hand side, is where the fire trucks will go down underneath the building, and that's really just not a safe thing to have nowadays. In our point of view, things have changed quite a bit.
Right,
So
yeah,
now I
they're-
think this is where we're at for you to give just a little bit of the history and such.
Yeah, so there's a number of reasons why having trucks in the basement is not ideal, trucks and firefighters. But yeah, so just some of the recent history, like you said, I mentioned that item from the 1990s. But more recently, the town hired an architectural firm back in, I think, 2014. They did a study of all the town facilities and kind of assessed their needs, the needs of the town at that point. And one of the proposals was for a new fire station to replace station number 2 in the basement of Town Hall. So that was at that time a 17,000 square foot station. The total cost was about $4.86 million, and that went to the voters at the 2015 town meeting and was rejected fairly handily. 348 folks yes, 520 no. Got about 40% of the vote, and because it was a bond issue, it needed 60% of the vote, so it was kind of flipped from where it needed to be. The next year, the town went back, and one of the things we heard from folks after that 2015 vote was, well, you're asking for a fire station now, but the town hall has needs, the police station has needs, other things have needs, you're just going to come back year after year. So what they tried to do the next year was tried to put all those different items together. So the fire station was in with improving town hall, was in with an addition to the police station, was in with a salt shed for the DPW, Department of Public Works. And while I think that was wasn't a bad idea at the time, I think in hindsight it kind of didn't work out because it gave folks the sense that all the fire stations that were proposed were like $5 million plus, where they really weren't. So that one at that point was like a 10,000 square foot station, cost of just over $3 million. But like I mentioned, it was included with town hall improvements, salt shed and police station improvements. So the total article that folks voted on that year was $5.5 million. Went a little bit in the right direction. They got 456 votes yes, or about 45%. Still didn't get that 60%. So then we kind of took a few years off from the fire station. The town, 2017, approved money to put on an addition to the police station, so that addressed that need. Checked that off the needs list. They built a salt shed, so that checked off that need. But now we're back to the two big nuts to crack, which are getting the fire department out of the basement of Town Hall, so they have a clean, modern station, and then potentially taking over that space for town hall purposes in the basement.
Right. So let me just say, if you've ever been to the town hall, you guys need some space there. You have no space at all. I'm not saying that that's the biggest priority, but by changing where we have the fire station to another location, you open up the fact that you're going to have space for the town hall and a fire station that could last for 50 or more years.
Right.
And it's going to be much more modern than what you have now. I mean, seriously, if we look at another photograph of the station right now, with the garage or the doors and the way they are, there's not a lot of room there. Can you fit a ladder truck in there?
No.
No. And when they drive in, how do they start? I mean, the fumes, where do they go? The fumes go when they start up the trucks?
They go upstairs into the town hall.
Right. Right.
where folks are
So
working or
there's
doing business.
Yeah, there's things that I really think that we need to think about, for the future of the firemen and for our administration
Right.
and anybody going to pay taxes. I mean, like, if something happens, you're smelling all
Right,
that
or
kind of
people
stuff.
that have worked in the town hall for 20 plus years.
Right.
There's, who knows what the potential health risks there are. You mentioned
Right.
the trucks fitting. Some of them literally come within inches. It depends on how the tires are pumped up or whether they're full of water or not, whether they fit in there. It's very tight in terms of getting in just in between the doors, just fitting in there. It's very tight as well.
Yep. Water coming down in.
Right, there are water issues, drainage issues within the building and coming in the foundation.
Yep. Washing the uniforms.
Right, there's no, so we'll get to maybe a little bit of that when we put up the
slides.
the slides and the new design to kind of show stuff that's in the proposed station that's not available anywhere in any of the stations now. So there are a number of reasons that I think we'll kind of get into as we go through the slides of what's not in the existing station and what's really.
So let's take a
limiting.
look at the existing station. We don't have a lot of photographs from the inside, but we do have the outside. And if we can look at some of the pictures of the garage area, this is where they would drive in. There's 3 bays. And I think there's 3 bays in most of the stations that we have for
Yes.
East Swansea and West Swansea as well.
Yep.
But yeah, as you can see, I mean, they just built on, they dug it out. They
Put up retaining walls that are, at least the one on the right there, I don't know if you can see in the picture, but it's having
The red
some
one?
cracking and issues. Yeah, the red one. So.
Yep. Yep. And then this is the state. I mean, this is an older photograph, but still, you can see that this is a much smaller engine than the engines that we have now. And I have to say, I've never been inside, but is there a lot of space in there?
No,
No.
not at all. And
So-
there's really no dedicated space. That's another thing that we'll get to a little bit on the floor plan. But stuff is just jammed in where there's room for mops and uniforms and extra equipment. It's just tucked in corners, and it's just not a great reflection on what we hope is a professional space where people, they're paid employees. It's not a good workspace, and it's not a good recruitment tool to keep call employees as opposed to full-time career employees, where there's a huge cost there.
Right.
So we want to have a station that helps us recruit volunteers and people can be proud to work in, and not a liability and make people not so happy to be working in that
Right.
space.
Right. And I mean, this is a service. What we have to think about is, I think, the health of the firemen and women. But this is a service that they offer to us. Like, if our house is burning, we want somebody to come and put it out.
Right.
Like, if we don't have people to, put them out, firemen and women, then what are we going to do?
Right.
Like, we do have to plan ahead. We have to think ahead at what we need to have happen. So let's look at a couple more photographs, and then let's get to the slides of the proposed fire station. Do you have anything else to say right now, Michael?
Nope, you can start putting up pictures.
Yep. Okay, so this is going back probably 1970s, 1960s. We can shoot back through these. You can see that the fire truck is much smaller than the ones that we have now. Those are the ones that the kids used to ride around on for birthday parties. So let's go to the next slide. That's more like what it is now.
Right.
Just not a lot of room. And then, this is just a reminder here that we have the deliberative session coming up.
Right, so we have the bond hearing where we'll be discussing this aspect, because there would be a bond to fund the fire station.
And that's January 15th,
And it's January
2020.
15th at 6 p.m. at the Monadnock High School.
Cafeteria.
And then February 4th is a deliberative session, so you can listen to our other show where we outline some of the differences between what happens at the budget hearing versus the deliberative session. But it's really important to try to go to both if you can.
Yeah. And I do plan to go. I'm
Good.
just telling you. But it's an education.
Right.
Like, I've never been to these things, so I pretty much want to sit there and just take it all in
Yep.
to understand,
No
what
one
is it that you do there?
No one gets called on. It's just an opportunity to come listen to the explanations. If you have questions and you want to get up and speak, you're welcome to. But no one's certainly forced to participate.
Right. Okay, we've got a lot of slides to go through, so let's see what we can find here. Okay, so this is just an outline of how large Swansea is. That's an old map.
Yeah, and I think that map is good just to touch on a question that we kind of routinely get when we talk about fire stations. You mentioned Swansea has 3 fire stations. Does Swansea need 3 fire stations? And the answer is probably, because there's one kind of in the bottom right, southeast part of the town in East Swansea. There's one on Main Street in West Swansea, and there's one kind of around the middle of the map in Swansea Center on Old Homestead Highway. And for response times, both because of the geography, you might notice there's not really many east or west roads across to
Right.
get from one part to the other. So there's just the geography. Swansea is blessed, but also cursed with a number of covered bridges that fire engines can't go over.
Right.
And also for kind of homeowners insurance ISO ratings, it's important to have a fire station, in certain proximity to houses. So, yeah. So I just wanted to mention that while that map was up there.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. It's all yours, Michael.
So while this is up here, I'll just give a brief overview of kind of what we've done historically this past year. I mentioned we took a little bit of a break for a few years from the fire station projects, but this year late in 2018, the town purchased 321 Old Homestead Highway, which is about a mile north of Town Hall. And we asked the voters at the town meeting in 2019 if they wanted to approve funds to design a fire station on that property. And by over 60%, they did say yes. So we thought it was important to start by asking the voters. In the past, we've kind of developed a plan and then asked the voters and then heard from people that they didn't like the location. So we wanted to start by saying, this is the location. What do you think? People said yes, and they directed us to do that, do the project. So we hired an architect earlier this year. One thing we did is we visited 3 recently constructed stations, so Washington, New Hampshire, Litchfield, and Warner, and we got some of the ideas that are going to be included in the site plan that we are going to go over here in a minute. And then also throughout the fall, we had, I think, a total of 7 different meetings between the fire department and also members of the public, and we got their input at every stage. We had focused meetings on building construction, infrastructure and utilities, community engagement. I mentioned a number with the fire department. We talked about different aspects of the site plan, how that would be set up. Building construction materials. So we really tried to keep checking in with people and asking them, does this look like what you expect, what you think Swansea can support and afford, but also has enough to meet the needs, existing needs, and hopefully some ability to address future needs. So
Right.
it's definitely a balance, but we hope we did that. And like I mentioned, between the different meetings, at least from the folks that participated, all told, probably had about 100 folks that came to the different meetings. Some people came to all of them, some only came to one. But we really thought it was a good process. Hopefully, we liked the outcome. So if you want to kind of keep going back to those pictures, we can go back to the...
Yeah, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys, we didn't just go ahead and boom, we took whatever you gave us the first time. You really did listen to what the community would like to see happen.
Right.
So I think that's, as a resident, I feel like I appreciate that.
Right. We tried to take nothing for granted and make no assumptions. There is a building on the property that we bought.
And let's look at that plot plan too.
Okay,
if
sure.
We could.
Yeah.
We'll keep talking, but
Yeah.
I want you to be able to take a look at that.
Yeah, no, that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the site plan. So that shows the proposed design. There's 2 driveways shown on there. I think the one to the south or the bottom of the screen would be out primarily, and the one on the north end would be in primarily. You'll notice, kind of looking at the design, that the bays would be drive-through. So there are 3 double deep bays, so trucks would be able to drive through either way.
And you could have a ladder truck?
Could have a ladder truck. Any of the Swansea current apparatus would have plenty of room in that station.
Right. And the thing that I like about this too is they've thought for the future for the training for staff. They've thought about the clean areas and the dirty areas. They've thought about parking. They've really thought through a lot of the necessities.
Right. So in terms of parking, it kind of ties together when we show the floor plan, but the front parking kind of on the right along Old Homestead Highway would be the parking for primarily the training room, the meeting room, and also for the offices. If some business owner or property owner is coming in to meet with the fire department to discuss something, they'd park in the front. The parking on the back or the left side of the picture you're looking at would be for the firefighters when they're responding to a call. And that as we show the floor plan, you'll see that parking has direct access right to their gear room, so they can just park there, walk in, get their gear, and get on the fire engine.
Yeah, I like the way that they've organized it. So the front area is the public area. So
Right.
you don't have the ability to go through the whole building to get to find whoever you're looking for. You go to the front, that's where you're going to be. Then they have the offices and
Right.
different things like that. I just really like the way that they've thought this through. And this is not the first fire station that I don't believe that this architect has designed before. So they have some experience as to what is necessary
Right.
in these buildings.
Right. Yeah, and just for reference, we mentioned Old Homestead Highway on the right. The airport is on the left, Keens DeLaunt Hopkins Airport, which is in Swansea. So
Right.
just for folks' perspective, it's also Borders Airport property on the south.
Yeah. So let's take a look inside and see what the plan is for the building.
So it's really broken down to, I'll say three and a half zones, but on the left is what's called the hot zone. That's focused on the fire department.
And that's more the
members.
orange area. That's
Red, orange.
Red,
Yeah, so
but that's towards the back of the building.
correct. So from Old Homestead Highway, that's to the back. So furthest from the left, people might notice there's I guess kind of in the middle on the left. Furthest to the left is a mezzanine area, which would be over the hot zone. But so there's a door on the left side of the red part. The firefighters would come in there, go in the locker room on the left, get their extraction gear, their turnout gear, I mean. And then they would get in the fire engines, which are in the yellow part, which is the warm zone, and go off to a call. When they get back, they'd access some of those areas at the bottom, which has room for decontamination, be able to clean off a lot of the hazards that firefighters bring back from fires nowadays. Between the different synthetic materials that are in our homes, they're burning a lot differently than they used to, and we've come a long way in learning the potential impacts for that. So right now, even in Swansea today, firefighter might go to a call, come back, hang up their gear, go home. And
How do they wash their gear?
often either just with a hose off at the site or with a garden hose, or we do have one kind of commercial washing machine. But so
Can you put them in the dryer after?
No. They
So,
have to,
so what they have to have is they have to have a uniform that, just in case that they have another call.
Right.
I mean, if they have a fire that comes right after another fire, what are they going to use? You know, like
they might have to go in wet gear.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's what it is. But
Right.
with this new system, they've kind of thought things through a little bit more for
Right,
the
so
washers.
they would come back, they'd be able to put their gear in a extractor that's designed specifically to remove the hazardous materials from the gear, and then there'd be a drying area that could dry several sets of gear quickly. They'd also be able to decontaminate themselves, take a shower, change into fresh clothes, so they're not bringing those
Things home with
cancer-causing and other health risks home to their families. So that's certainly a priority in the hot zone, and that's really something that wasn't in to the same degree even the prior stations that were proposed.
Who would have thought? I mean, like, we have so many synthetic materials now in our houses. Back when in the early 1900s, they probably had all kinds of wood. That
Right.
was what they used. They
Right.
had natural materials. Now we have all kinds of different polymers of whatever. So, I mean, we really have to think about that because
Well, and it
it's
was
the
a thing
safety of everyone.
And it was a sign of pride in a lot of fire departments to have dirty gear to show that you were going into the fires and fought a lot of fires, and so they kept them dirty. And
Right.
now we really have a better understanding of that and really want to prioritize having, again, a safe, clean work environment
Right.
for these folks.
Yeah. So let's take another look at that same photograph again, because there's more areas over to the right-hand side
Right.
that have offices and training areas.
So we mentioned the hot zone on the left side and the warm zone, which is mainly where the trucks are. There's also some dedicated cleaning and workspace for working on equipment. Then on the far right side is the cold zone. So the dark blue or purple is office space. So there's basically an office for all the uses that are currently have offices. So those offices are currently in West Station, Station 3. They're up a very steep set of stairs. There's only one adequate means of egress. So that's, oh, sorry.
No, I just wanted to input that this is all one floor too.
Right, so this is all one floor right now, other than the small mezzanine area.
So that cuts out from having to have stairways.
Right,
Yeah.
so it would be fully accessible. So if a business owner who has mobility issues wants to meet with the fire department, they can do it safely and comfortably without having to ask for special accommodations. So we really feel like if the town is going to impose codes and restrictions on folks, we should do a better job of meeting them. So, the office is the office the biggest priority of the station to get it out of get the fire department out of the basement? Not necessarily, but we want to have, again, these are modest. They're the same size or smaller than what they currently have, and it'd be all in one place. So that's the purple area.
Isn't it nice, though, to have a central location where actually, Station 1 and 3 can come and meet with 2, and you have enough room for everybody to get together?
Right, and so everyone would have a set of gear at this station so they could respond out of this station. There'd also be a training room, if we want to go back real quickly to the design one last time, that in the top right portion, so that would be kind of the public aspect of the building. So it's the light blue area. There's a training room, but also could be used for public meetings. There's a couple of restrooms, a kitchenette area, but really, again, modest. We think modest and reasonable. One other item I just want to briefly mention, because to some folks it is important that we think about the future. There is an area that's set off, kind of that dotted line to the very top on the right. That could be a potential area where if we did need to expand for living quarters or additional space, there is some additional room. But we don't have those needs now, so we didn't feel we could ask folks to fund it at this point. But we do
I think that's smart, though. I mean, at least you're looking to the future, but you're not spending the money right now.
Right.
So why spend the money if we don't really have to have it right now? Right. One of the other things that I want to remind people too is that you are not closing Station 1 and Station 3.
Right.
So there will still be 3 stations, but you'll have one that you can all gather that's more modern than the other ones, because it's important to have the other stations, but we need to have something that is going to work for everybody, that's more modern. It's not, it just needs to be healthy. It needs to be healthy for everyone. It needs to be healthy for our community so that we have somebody that can take care of us when our houses are burning or whatever needs are there. And it's going to take care of our firefighters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a little bit we mentioned in the other show, but Swanzey is the second largest community in this region. The fire department responds to around 1,100 calls a year. So they're really busy. They're really active. They're largely call employees, or a couple part-timers and 2 full-time positions, but otherwise it's a lot of call members of the community. So we want to try to have a space that's, again, cleaner, safer, and modern.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael.
And we didn't talk too much about cost, but in terms of cost, what we're looking at, because some of your folks might be a little interested in that. The total cost is about $3.95 million, so just under $4 million. We'll be looking for a $3.5 million of that to come from a bond. We're exploring some grants and different opportunities to help. That's how we get down to the $3.5 million. But now that sounds like a big number, and it is a big number, certainly compared to improvements folks are looking at their homes. But based on the bond payments we're looking at, it would cost about 40 cents per thousand of assessed value. So if someone has a $200,000 property, they'd be looking about an increase of $80 per year. So it is significant. That's real money, but
but it's
everyone,
planning to the future.
Right, and everyone doesn't have to pay for the $3.5-4 million.
Right. So we're going to have more programs. This is called Swanzey Now. Thank you, Michael. And we'll have other people coming in from the town and people that you just should know. Please plan to try to get to some meetings. You can go to the selectmen meetings. You can go to the budget meeting. Budget meeting again is January 15th. The deliberative session is on February 4th. And then voting is March 10th. So we'd love to see you. And let's see.
Swanzey.
5 boroughs. Anyway, we'll see you soon. Thank you.